All right, welcome to the walkthrough of Quiz 4. Here we've got some mailings by city and department. So we have a list of cities, then departments, how many items were mailed, and then the responses to those mailings. Over here, we're going to analyze them and grade each one as being excellent, very good, good, and average. We're going to talk about this one here in a couple minutes. And then this page has some lookup values that we're going to stick in these cells. And finally over here, if you look close, you'll see the cities, the departments, the number of dependents, and the number of claims for all the different departments and all the different people that are employed by Classic Gardens and Landscape. And down here, we've got some analysis where we look at the dependents and claims, etc. All right, so let's get going here. Split my screen, click the mailing sheet, and select the name the cells A3 through D28 as responses. So we've been doing that for a couple lessons now. Go to the mailing stats sheet. Okay, down here, I want the people to be able to type in the city, and then I want to see the number of responses out of that response table. So if we look at Carthage, that's the 6th row down here. The number of responses is 343. So after we get done here, I'm going to want 343. Now that, if in that grid of cells, that's the 6th row down. But to do this, we use the index function. Now we'll learn more about the index function in Module 5, but this quiz file here is the closest thing I could find in the library of assignments in SimNet to what we're doing in Module 4. So we got some Module 4 and Module 5 stuff together into this, but we'll get you through it. So the index function basically takes a table and then finds a row and a column and the intersection of that row and that column and returns that value. The lookup table is the responses, and then to find the row, we have to highlight all those cells, and then we want to find the match for the word Carthage, and then it will return us the number 6. So inside the match function, the first parameter is the lookup value, which is B21, and then the range is A3 through A28, that first column, and then 0 for an exact match. Now to find the column number, we're going to use another match function. It's the 4th column in the database in that responses table, so theoretically you could just put a 4 in there, but I much prefer using the match function to find the value. So see how the number of responses is in the 4th column? That's our lookup value, and then we highlight those 4 rows and say which of those columns is the number of responses in, and it's going to come back with the number 4 in our formula. So the index function is a pretty complex function. It's probably one of the more complex ones we'll work on all semester long. But let me walk through it to show you what happens inside the index function itself. So the first parameter is the responses. So if I come up here to evaluate formula, I can step through this one step at a time. So everything that's underlined gets resolved next. So clicking evaluate, now it's going to find the first parameter of that match function. So it's going to find the word Carthage in rows A3 through A28. And it's going to return a number when I hit the evaluate button, because that's the next thing that's underlined. So click on that and see how that match function got replaced with a 6. That's because it was the 6th row. Now I have to find the column. So I find the number of responses in the cell range of A3 through D3, and it comes back with a 4. So now inside the responses table, I want the 6th row and the 4th column, and if I hit evaluate now, it should come back with the right answer, and it does. So that's how you use an index function, and that's also how you use this handy dandy evaluate formula tool that's really handy when you're working on large complex formulas. All right, so we got 343, which is the right answer. Let's check it and move on. All right, so do some formatting here. Check that box, 0 decimal places, type in Smyrna now, and see if we get 300 for that. And we do, so our formula works. Just an FYI, if you type in something other than one of those lists, it's going to throw an error, which we'll learn how to handle in Module 5. All right, so if we take a look at our mailing sheet, we have this column of number of items mailed and the number of responses. Over here, we want a formula that says for each landscape department, what's our responses and how good are we doing. So over here, we list our departments. Land, star for landscaping, law for lawn and garden with the star, and then pat with a star after it for patio. Check all those boxes. Now in this cell, we want to determine for the landscape design how many were sent. So here we have a dsum for database sum, and the database is called responses. That's our table in the first one, and it's the third column, so I put a 3 in here, and then the criteria. Now the criteria is over here in B1 and B2. Our department column is land. So put an absolute reference in there, even though I'm not sure it's needed, but SimNet wants you to do it. So let's please SimNet by all means. Now we copy it from C7 over to D7, and we have to change the column number from the third column or third field to the fourth field. And now we get the right answer. Trust me. We could use a match function in there, which I would kind of prefer as opposed to hard coding the 4, but we do what we're told here in SimNet, and we'll just put the 4 in there. Now we can highlight those and copy them down, and we have to go in, we have to adjust these formulas for the different cells. So here we want B4 and B5 and B7 and B8 for patio. So come in here and change the 1 to a 4 and the 2 to a 5. And same on this cell. 4, 5, and then this one's 7 and 8, 7 and 8. And now we need some sum cells, so I'm going to hit Alt equals, and that comes up there. Copy that across. I need to do some formatting here. So take the comma, put a comma in there, and take out a couple decimal places. I need to do that for the cells right above it, but I'll do that here in a few minutes. All right, now D7. Here's where it gets interesting, gang. So I want to find the response rate, and based on the response rate, I want to have the words filled out from these tables right below us. So the response rate is C7 divided by B7. We change that to a percent and add a decimal to it and copy that down. And so I get my percentages there. Now you don't have to do that as part of this assignment, but I want to show you what's going to happen here in a few minutes. I found what I consider to be a bug in this assignment. So I'm going to walk you through how to do it right and then how to do it, how SimNet wants you to do it. And I'm in discussions with them on how to fix that, but that's the story for another day. All right, let's color code these. So if it's 20% or above, it's excellent. If it's 15 to 19%, it's very good. So let me pick a different shade of green there. If the response rate is 11 to 14%, it's good. And if it's 5 to 10%, it's average. So what happens if it's below 5%? What do they get? I don't know. Call it crappy. Poor would probably be a more politically correct term, but we'll go with crappy for today. I'm going to show you how they want you to do it, and then I'll show you how I would do it instead. So I'm going to take this formula and copy and paste it into there. It's going to basically look at C7 divided by B7 and see if it's greater than or equal to 20%. And if it is, it's going to give you the word excellent. Then if it doesn't satisfy that bill, so if it's not greater than 20%, it goes to the next part of the if statement and says, is C7 divided by B7 greater than or equal to 15%, and then 11%. And then if it fails all those, it says, well, are you less than or equal to 10%? And if you are, you get C18, which is the word average. And if you take that formula and copy and paste it into here, put an equal sign and paste it, it comes up with the word excellent. Drag it down. So now if you look, excellent, it's 24.4%, so it should be excellent. That one's 12%, so it should be good. 24%, excellent. 19%, 19.1%, very good. So if you do that, you'll get credit for this step. The problem comes in, let's see if you can figure this out. If it's greater than 11%, you get 17, but if it's less than 10%, you get 18, which is average. So what happens if it's between 10 and 11%? Like if I take this number and put in 2220, it comes out to 10.1%. The formula throws an error because there is no logic to address anything between 10 and 11. So I'm going to insert and put a question mark there and question mark there. And this is what I proposed to the SimNet folks last night. And they're looking at it this morning. But this bug may not be fixed by the time you do this assignment. So I want you to know how to do it to get through it and get the points. But then I also want to show you the right way. So the right way, in my opinion, is to do all the same for the first part, 20%, 15%, 11%, check all those. But I'm going to add one that says, okay, what about if it's greater than or equal to 5%? Then it's C18. And then finally, the last criteria is just a true, which means it's always going to evaluate to a true, and it's going to basically be like none of the above. If none of those other things are right, we get down to here and we just jam a true value in there. So it's going to come up with crappy. So if I escape out of that formula and copy it down, that 10.1% now correctly evaluates to average. And if I change it to, something that's really bad, it's going to say crappy, as opposed to before it would have said average. All right, now let's look at the Sumifs IFS function. So here we have a bunch of employees, what department they're in, what city they're in, how many dependents they have, and number of insurance claims on that person. So this first one is in Brentwood, lawn and maintenance department, 4 dependents, 3 claims. Brentwood landscape. I'm looking for all the Brentwood and landscapes. It's kind of a fishing expedition to find out the combination of stuff. So, here's another one. So if you're in Brentwood and the landscape department, how many dependents are there? So if the city's Brentwood and the department is landscape, sum the number of dependents. So to do that, this is a Sumifs, IFS. So equals Sumifs. And our sum range is the range of cells that we want to add up. If our criteria matches, what do we want to add? So the field that we want to add is the number of dependents. So our next criteria, our next argument is the criteria range. So if I want to find out all the people in Brentwood from all these cities, come in here and highlight the cities. That's our criteria range. And then the criteria that we want to compare against that is BRE star. All right. Now the next criteria range is I want all these departments. So my criteria range is that range of cells that houses all those. And the criteria for that is LAN star. Close that in double quotes. And those are my type 2 criteria. So if a row has Brentwood and landscaping, then it comes back with the number of dependents. All right, so let's do the same thing for Springfield and human resources. Take out BRE and put in SPR for Springfield. And then instead of landscaping, I put in HUM for human resources, star, and I get 4. And that is the correct answer. Now we have to change it up a little bit because now instead of number of dependents, we want number of claims. So I'll copy it down because it gives me the format of what I want, but I've got to change some stuff around. So instead of column F as our sum range, I have to change it to G. And then our city is still the same, but I want to change that to Forest Hills, so FOR. And instead of human resources, I want Pat, and I get 6. And now I want the number of claims for Gallatin or Gallatin and lawn and maintenance. So change those to the appropriate items, hit enter, and there are 0 matches there. All right, so that is this step. So check all those boxes. And finally, we're going to use a text join. This is a very common formula. We did something a little bit like this in our last assignment, assignment 2, where we joined a less than or equal sign to a value in a cell using the ampersand or the shift 7. But there's another way to do this using a text join. So the delimiter is a space, and we don't want anything in this ignore empty file, ignore empty field. So I want a space between Anna, Maria, and Conrad. So put a space and then click on Anna, click on Maria, click on Conrad, and it puts all 3 of those together into like a little sentence with 3 chunks of text in it. So the text join is a real handy formula to show how to tie different cells together and form a little sentence out of it. So let me go back and do the formatting of those cells that I forgot to put the commas in, and then we'll submit it and see how we do. So come over here, highlight these cells in the middle, put a comma, 0 decimal places, save it, close it, submit it, upload my file. There it is. Yeah, sure, submit it, whatever. And there we go, 100%. Go Knowles.